Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Uncle Matt here live. A little bit later than planned, but life finds a way. As they say, to have a live discussion, live breakdown, live update on the Tennessee Titans making the decision to fire general manager Rand Carthon. Was not planning to do as many live streams this week as we have done, but things just seem to keep happening with the Titans. We secured the first overall draft pick. We don't do anything on Monday. The owner just stays quiet. And then suddenly Tuesday, drop a bomb, fire the general manager. Um, been a wild last like 12 hours or so. Like I wanted to like maybe go live earlier, but I've been kind of like reading the tea leaves, reading the articles, reading the tweets, trying to follow along, trying to like get a vibe, a general consensus of what really is going on with the situation. Because I don't want to just come on here and like be that fan that gutturally overreacts. Maybe is a better way to say that since I can't say that first word, and just like spouts off. Last year I was pretty negative on the firing of Mike Vrabel. Maybe I was right in that regard, but trying to take a even keeled look at things from all sides type approach to the situation. Definitely seems chaotic, definitely seems stupid, definitely seems like not the best move to do if you're looking for stability, if you're looking for, continuity, if you're looking for collaboration, which was the big selling point of why we fired Mike Vrabel, was to find this new big happy family between Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, Amy Strunk Adams, and obviously Brian Callahan. And it just does not seem that family seemed to stay together the way we were told they were going to try to stay together. I think the easiest way to go through this is I've pulled a bunch of tweets from today, a bunch of stuff from different articles I've read, just kind of like want to go through those, and I'll kind of like give my instant reactions, instant thoughts to each of those, and kind of like work my way up to what my ultimate thought of the whole situation is. The big one that I first saw today, which is alarming, depending on what camp you're in as a Titans fan, with the first overall draft pick. If you're somebody that wants us to draft Shedeur Sanders, this would be something for you to note of. Pretty much immediately after the Titans official Twitter account tweeted out Titans part ways with general manager Rand Carthon, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, the father of Shedeur Sanders, who will certainly have a big hand in determining where Shedeur goes, retweeted that with the caption, "Wow, eyeballs emoji." Is that a wow, like, holy hell, I hope this team doesn't draft my son? Is that a wow, like, the door's open for me to have a little bit more influence there? Who knows? That was certainly notable. Right out of the gates there. This was a note that came out from Ian Rappaport right away. He kind of highlighted the fact that Brandon Carthon, who was fired after 2 seasons, had just signed an extension the past offseason. He has 4 years remaining on his current deal. That's a little different than there's been a lot of commentary of oh, well, Amy Adams Strunk gave John Robinson an extension, then she fired him. Amy Adams Strunk gave Mike Vrabel an extension, then she fired him. And that's right. That's true. It is becoming a bad pattern to keep giving these people extensions and then firing them. But Vrabel and Robinson's extensions were semi-merit based. They've done something. Let's give them a reward. The Carthon extension was more, we hired Brian Callahan. They were trying to get the contract of him and Vrabel aligned. So it wasn't like Carthon got like a good job, buddy. You did a great job, because he'd only been in the job for a year. So it wasn't like he'd been around for a while, got a huge extension. I think he probably there's maybe only a year added on to whatever his original contract was, but it was more he got like a new title, kind of a restructured deal, but it was more to get him in line with Carthon's deal, which was the idea was like collaboration, structure, stability, consistency. Connor Sports Channel says, sup, by the way. Sup. Shorten through it all, Connors. All right, let's pull some other stuff. Some other comments, some other stuff I'd pulled. Like, this is kind of going to be the basis for this. I'm going to kind of go through things I saw here. John Glennon reposted. Titans president CEO Burt Nihill says Chad Brinker will have final say on all football matters, including the team's roster. This is going to be a key point through this whole thing, is that Chad Brinker. That's a name you're going to hear me say a lot today. That's a name you're going to hear repeatedly. Let's just go background. I tried to dive into this today. I was trying to research it. I wanted to have as much information, as much clarity as I could on this. So Chad Brinker is a name I've heard a lot with the Titans lately, and I have not been fully who is this guy? Who is this guy? That I remember the name coming up. I remember there being stuff talked about him, but it's not like a name that was coming up that frequently. It was just like a name that we knew was a part of the organization, but maybe it's, failing of me to have not known more formally who he was. So I kind of dove deep into it. I was like, who is this guy that keeps coming up? This name that keeps coming up. And so he came in around the same time as Rand Carthon. I have not been able to find. I was trying to look at like the exact timeline. Can't find who came in first. I'm sure somebody can, add this comment and help me out here. But who came first, who came second? But they were hired in the same general window. They both came in ahead of the 2023 season. So Mike Vrabel's last season. These were the two guys that kind of came in as a part of the overhaul of the front office that happened when John Robinson, our previous general manager, got fired. Chad Brinker came in as assistant general manager. He worked in the Packers organization for 13 plus years. I got another comment. I'll pull that one up right now if I can find it, just because this will tie into that. If I can find where I found that one. It was a comment from Matt LaFleur. All right. This is NFL owners meeting last spring. Matt LaFleur commenting about Chad Brinker. Matt LaFleur, former Titans offense coordinator, been the Packers head coach for the last few years. A lot of success there. Brinker is a stud. I'd work with him without any hesitation. Great, vote of confidence from, a successful head coach from a successful team. But you expect those type of things. Not many people come out in those type of spots and say, like, yeah, he's kind of a dummy. I wouldn't hire him if that good. So it's how much stock do you put in that? But Brinker had been with the Packers for 13 years. He was there the last time they won a Super Bowl. Kind of unclear what his roles were. He was in a variety of roles with the Packers organization. Came in, was hired, like I said, same general time Rand Carthon got hired, but Rand Carthon was a general manager and Chad Brinker got hired as the assistant general manager. So looking at kind of the just, natural power dynamics there, it sounds like Rand Carthon is A, Chad Brinker is B. Fast forward to this past offseason, Mike Vrabel gets fired. There's this whole deal about we need some stability. We need some collaboration. We need to have a aligned vision of everybody in the organization working together to the common goal. Hence, Vrabel wasn't in line with that. Vrabel and let it out there that Vrabel and Carthon weren't getting along. That and there's stuff that's come out that says Vrabel had told Amy Adams Carthon was not ready to be a general manager. You're making a mistake hiring him. All that's out there. So there's all this stuff going on. Move forward, go through 1 year. Vrabel gets fired. Rand Carthon gets a promotion to general manager and executive vice president. But Chad Brinker also goes from being assistant general manager to president of football operations, seemingly somehow leapfrogging Rand Carthon. If you're just looking at these weird structural things, like what title means what, who means what is what. Just seems like going from assistant to president, and then your superior is then vice president. It's a weird dynamic. It's a weird power structure. Who knows, how all that came to be. And then here we are. Rand Carthon is now fired as of today, and Chad Brinker is the most powerful person in the Titans organization. Outright come out and said that he is leading the charge of who's going to hire the new general manager, and that no matter who they hire, this is the crazy part, Chad Brinker will have final say on all roster decisions. Which begs the question, what is the general manager's job going to be? Seems to me from, what they're insinuating, what they're saying is that This is the hard part because everybody is leaking. When you're reading what different Titans reporters, different people who cover the team who have sources. I don't have any sources. I'm compiling things from other things I've read and using my own general knowledge, my own general understanding of situations to try to come to conclusions. But it seems that the general thought process is that in some form or fashion, Brent Carthon was not. I don't know. I don't want to. Trying to think how to phrase this, how to put this in a way where it's not like coming off as weird, not coming off as coded language, not coming off as like saying something I don't want to say. But I think just reading tea leaves, reading things. Chad Brinker clearly is the power person in the Tennessee Titans organization right now. Probably to me, it indicates to me that when him and Rand came in at the same time, he was the one who, however you want to shake it out, however you want to say it, Amy Adams Strunk, the owner of the Tennessee Titans, he was her guy. He was the one that she really trusted. He was the one that she really wanted to back, wanted to bring in, wanted to make a deal with. And for whatever reason, for whatever situation, for whatever, circumstances, decided to make Rand Carthon the general manager hire, but wanted Chad Brinker in, wanted to make that him a part of our organization. And so brought him in as an assistant general manager. When the Vrabel thing fell apart, when there was an opportunity to kind of restructure, to re-examine, took the opportunity to give Brinker a little more control than maybe Vrabel wanted to give Brinker. You know, restructure things. Maybe not sure how much Rand knew about what was happening here, but it definitely seems like there was almost like a borderline Game of Thrones plot that was going on behind the scenes of Rand was the sacrificial lamb who was thrown to the wolves for whatever reason to prop up the proper king, or at least the person that Amy Adams Strunk viewed as the proper king, King Chad Brinker. Because there's no question the way you look at the reports today, look at the releases today, look at the information, look at everything that went down. There's no question that Chad Brinker is the most powerful person in the Titans organization, and probably has been for an undisclosed amount of time. Whether he is worthy of that, that's what's going to be determined. So let's scroll through some of these more of these comments that I want to kind of play off of and react to. So, and this one kind of plays into this. This is from Josina Anderson. She said, breaking, the Titans have parted ways with Rand Carthon per sources. This was indicated to me days ago that this was up for discussion. There had been questions around the league as to the dynamic between Carthon and Chad Brinker, quote unquote, president of football operations, and who really had final say and where that fell within allowable policies. So apparently there's, I guess the league has restrictions and rules on, what your title is, what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to do. Can you just de facto hire like a fake person to be a fake, fictional title, whatever type thing? I don't know. Several execs around the league had been asking about this to pertinent league officials. Now, as expected, and thus monitoring closely, it all apparently came to a head. So that's kind of going into it where it's situation where there was a weird power dynamic between Brinker and Carthon to the point that, according to this person, Josina Anderson, other executives from around the league were even taking note and being like, hey, this is kind of weird. What's going on there? Why is this the way things are? Why is this allowable? What have you? Almost like I don't want to get into it. I don't want to go down that road because it's going to sound bad, but there's definitely been some. This is not me. So I'll just get into it. I'll just pull out the rug. Not me saying this, but there's definitely been some suggestions, some, people who've insinuated that Rand Carthon was hired, because the league, rightly so, is pushing for teams to explore more diverse candidates, more diverse hiring positions, more, candidates from minority populations, minority whatever. And I agree, they should do that. It's been unfair to those people for so long that they haven't been looked at for the positions they should have been looked at for. But it's kind of a double edged sword where now there was a suggestion here that this was maybe influenced by that more than qualifications. This is not me saying that. This is not me saying that. I want to make that very clear. I don't want to get, even if not that like I don't have a big enough channel that people are going to cancel me, but this is what has been insinuated. This is what has been insinuated by multiple sources is that this was what it was, with the idea that he could grow in the position, he could learn the position, and he would eventually develop in the position, but that was never like a full on like we trust this guy, we really believe in this guy type thing. So there's that. And that's why it's coming to question like really was the authority, the power he was given in line with what the league says you're supposed to be given. You're supposed to be with certain titles, certain roles, certain blah 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 blah. This is from Justin M _ NFL, prominent Titans NFL coverage person. Former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel had cautioned Amy Adams-Strunk that Rand Carthon wasn't ready to be a GM. She hired him anyways. Vrabel was right. She fired Vrabel and chose Carthon. Now she fires Carthon a calendar year later. I don't think that's exactly the full narrative there. That's like somebody that's in Team Vrabel. Like I love Vrabel. Think he's a great coach. Think the narrative of like, oh, Vrabel was this and Vrabel was that. It's a little bit too off-centered there. I got way too much to fear. I'm gonna bring up a point. I'm just gonna go to the point. Like I don't want to dwell on this. I feel like I've already rambled too much, and I feel like I've already kind of talked myself into a corner about certain things, and I don't want to do that. I want to be as objective and as honest with the situation that I can. And the thing is, like, I've been trying to sort through what people are reporting the situation, but everybody that's reporting the situation, so the Paul Kaharskis, the Easton Freezes, the actual Titans reporters, they all have their sources that are close to one side or the other. I don't know who's getting stuff from who, but the people that want to make the Titans look good are going to leak information, leak stories that make Rand Carthon look bad. There's stuff coming out like crazy stuff, maybe true, maybe not, that people in the organization were frustrated that instead of immediately starting to watch tape on the plane rides back from games, Rand Carthon would take naps. He'd just go to sleep on the plane. Who doesn't like to sleep on a plane, man? I mean, there was criticism that he wasn't enough of a tape junkie, like a film junkie, like a go watch players play Senior Bowl, go see all study the players. He was more of a relationships guy, that his style of being a general manager was that he would make connections with players, make connections with agents, and kind of build stuff that way, as opposed to actually digging in and grinding, that's once again, that's probably coming from a lot of people who are still with the Titans organization that kind of want to throw Rand under the bus a little bit. And there probably is some truth in that. I'm sure there was probably one time where, or maybe a couple times where Rand was asleep on the plane and somebody was looking over what's he sleeping? We just lost 49-10 to the Lions. Wake up, get on the grind, get back to work. But it's a thing where that was a thing that happened where somebody's now highlighting that, emphasizing that to give more credence to why they fired Rand Carthon. I think the truth is somewhere in between, where definitely the results weren't good enough the last couple of years. I feel like Amy seems to want to have a scapegoat. She seems to decide she has to fire somebody every offseason. She's not going to fire the new coach. She's got to give him at least another year. But she also is looking at, she maybe never really wanted Rand Carthon in the first place. So it's an easy scapegoat type situation, especially if she can appease the certain need that she needed to appease. And now she can get the guy she wanted in the first place in the position. Not saying that's right or wrong, but that's what it feels like to me is what's going on here. And yeah, it sucks to be a fan. It sucks to be a fan where you're your team is just so scatterbrained, just seems to have no directions, no clear path forward. We're just going to rotate every offseason. If we don't do good, we're going to fire either the coach or the general manager with that we're in that cycle now. And especially when you're preaching that what we're looking for is collaboration, consistency, steadiness. We want to have everything on course, to keep everything on steady. And then Rand, I don't think there's anything demonstrative that you look at in terms of the roster that was fireable. It's clearly either this was just a power struggle that he lost, much like Vrabel, much like John Robinson. And John Robinson sucked. John Robinson got fired because he sucked. But Vrabel, I think, lost the power struggle. And, he definitely didn't have the legs to stand on after his last couple of seasons. That's another thing. I don't want to feel like I'm going to talk. I want Vrabel to get hired somewhere else so I can stop talking about Vrabel because, I love him. I thought he was a great coach while he was here. But this, narrative that's emerged over, the last year or so that he's, the second coming of Vince Lombardi, oh, teams are going to fire the coach to get in line to get Vrabel. What did he win 2 playoff games his entire time here? And everybody be like, oh, well, look at the roster he had. Look at the roster he had. Yeah, that John Robinson screwed him over with the roster. But John Robinson didn't make him keep Todd Downing employed for 3 years. So whoever hires Mike Vrabel, enjoy whatever idiots he decides to bring in as his coordinators around him. Because he might hit on one like he did with, Arthur Smith or Matt LaFleur. But if he gets a Todd Downing in, if he gets a whatever that idiot was who was a special teams coordinator last year, be prepared for him to just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm smarter than everybody else. Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm never going to fire these people. And, be stuck with that. Be happy for that for if you get Vrabel as your head coach next year. Anyway, but like I said, this doesn't seem to be fully merit-based. Seems like it was definitely more of a power struggle, more of a conflict of interest type thing because, the drafts have been pretty good under Carthon. The signings, the moves, there's not been the catastrophic, just horrible decisions that doomed John Robinson. So the ones of this specific season that you can point to, where it's we were deficient at pass rush, we were deficient at quarterback, and we were deficient at right tackle. Pass rush, I'll give him a pass on because we had so much money, so much tied up in Harold Landry and Arden Key that it was probably difficult. And those are a high level pass rusher is second only to a elite quarterback. That's not easy to come by. You're not, they don't grow on trees. So that's not an easy spot to fill. And when you're stuck with a contract, the guy before you overpaid to a guy like Harold Landry, there's only so much you can do. So wash away pass rusher. Not going to blame Rand Carthon for that. Quarterback. Probably the most glaring one. The one everybody's going to point to. Everybody's like, how'd you, Will Levis, blah, 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 Will Levis, blah, 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 blah. All indications are, if you hear behind the scenes stuff, behind the scenes information from people that I trust, once again, not sources I'm having. These are media people who are coming out and saying this stuff. It wasn't Rand Carthon was the one banging the drum that they had to draft Will Levis. That was coming from the organization. Code for lady up top, or maybe even Chad Brinker. Not a Rand Carthon move, not a Rand Carthon decision to trade up and draft Will Levis. It was an organizational decision. Think of that what you will. Where I could potentially criticize Rand Carthon is Mason Rudolph. And this is another one. I'll give him a little bit of a pass. Mason Rudolph would be a solid backup quarterback if you're the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the Chargers, whoever, the teams where you got your number one, your top tier quarterback as your starting quarterback. Mason Rudolph's your backup. Worst, best case scenario, you get an injury, he has to start one game, just get you to that game, 2 games maybe. You go on about if, whatever. Titans were not in that situation. The Titans were in a situation where our backup quarterback should have been somebody that could have been a breaking glass in case of emergency. Get this guy in there. Hopefully he can fix things where Will Levis has gone off the rails type of situation. And Mason Rudolph is not that guy, And retrospectively, I don't know who was on the market last year. I don't know who else was out there that could have been that guy. Obviously, it's hindsight's 2020. We were put on, retrospective glasses, but Sam Darnold was a free agent last offseason, and he's got the Vikings to be the second best team in the in the NFC. Um, you know, but at the same time, I'll also give Rand a little bit of grace here because Will Levis is clearly a very guy who is very in his own head, very mentally based in his performances. Do you want to bring in like more of a potential replacement type guy? Similar to like how Tannehill came in with Mariota. Did that disrupt, any chance Mariota had of righting the ship when a clear 1A type quarterback comes in as opposed to just a pure backup? If you bring in somebody that maybe is pushing to be the starter, does that disrupt Will Levis's development, his, chance of getting his mind right and being the starter? I don't know. So I'll give Rand grace there. So I'm gracing him in two of the major deficiencies he had in the roster build this last offseason. The third one, where I won't give him any grace at all, is specifically right tackle, because we went into the season and somehow still decided Nicholas Petit-Frere was the best option right tackle. There was no veteran option brought in. There was no draft option brought in. There was a few guys that had been like undrafted free agents or like secondary players who were on the roster last year that were brought back. But there was no real competition, no real push, no real extra, effort to improve that specific spot on the offensive line. And that was a disaster throughout the season. So I will fault him for that. And I will also fault him for L'Jarius Sneed. There's L'Jarius Sneed, you don't make that trade unless you legit think you're ready to go for something, unless you're ready to compete. And, maybe Carthon thought he had to make some moves to save his job. Maybe Carthon misread where the roster and everything else was at, but traded a third-round pick, which is now going to be a very valuable pick in this year's draft because it's going to be a very high third-round pick to get L'Jarius Sneed. And he played 4 games, and he kind of sucked in the 4 games he played. So that was horrible move, but nowhere near as bad as anything John Robinson did. So it's nothing he did overall was a fireable offense, but it definitely seems like there was. It was more of an internal behind the scenes kind of conflict of interest type thing. And, that he wasn't doing what they wanted him to do in whatever form or fashion that is. And Robert Greenlaw, I've got this tweet pulled up right here where he really sums up. This is probably the best summary I would agree with in terms of the last 2 off seasons for the Titans. Robert Greenlaw, Rob on Broadway on Twitter. My thoughts on Rand firing are very similar to my thoughts when Vrabel was. Would I have done it? No. Should it have happened? Maybe. Can the Titans get better from it, both short term and long term? Absolutely. Do I trust the person at the very top making all these choices? Nope. And that's where we're at, because it is ultimately Amy Adams Strunk, who I believe is the head of the table, making these choices. And, we'll see as this next, season plays out, how much of this is her making her own decisions, how much of this is this Chad Brinker guy just snaked in and maybe taking full control, and he's Littlefinger, whispering in her ear, Rand Carthon, he is the devil, or whatever it is. Because the stuff that's come out with certain news sources about Rand Carthon definitely feels like somebody wanted to kill Rand Carthon's reputation. It's not like just hey, the results weren't good enough, we decided to move on. It's like they are burning him to the ground. There's reports coming out, like I said, he's napping on the airplane after games. He's left the Senior Bowl early. He left pro days early. He's not watching enough tape. He's like, that's not stuff that's coming out from that's coming from the people that want you to hate Rand Carthon, right or wrong. Maybe it's I think there's somewhere that's a middle ground of what's true and what's not true, but there's definitely a lot of people flooding the market with the anti-Rand Carthon stuff. And I think this is somewhat of a relatively new thing in the NFL game. I maybe am more accustomed to it because this has been a thing in European soccer for years. I spent years trying to figure out how to read between the tea leaves of the transfer rumors, the transfer market, the rumors. in European soccer till we got, Fabrizio Romano. There was like no way to know what the real transfer rumors were and weren't. But now, you're starting to see what's agent talk. You're starting to see like who's trying to like leak stuff out to the media to get favor here. There's definitely, I guarantee you, Rand Carthon fell asleep on a flight back from a Titans game at some point in time. And somebody, probably Chad Brinker, in the organization took a note of that and went, that's how I'm going to get you, brother. That's how I'm going to take you down. I'm going to tell everybody you slept on the plane when you should have been studying film. And they overemphasized it, whatever. And like, there's been a lot of questions like, so if Chad Brinker's going to have full roster control, what's the general manager going to do? I think they just want a guy. I think he wants more of a head official top tier scout is what they're looking for at the general manager position. Somebody who's going to grind the tape, grind the film, study all the players, give all the grades, but then ultimately Brinker will look at all and make all decisions. And it is what it is. Adam says, if you were the Titans GM, who would you draft first round? Well, first of all, I probably right now would not want to be the Titans GM because, as I've kind of alluded to, it seems like that is a Fugazi position. It seems like Chad Brinker has taken full control of the organization, and whoever is the general manager is just going to be his lapdog that's going to have to run around and, do all the study, do all the tape, and ultimately Chad Brinker is going to make the decision at the end of the day. In fact, like that key point to me, like I think we're drafting Shedeur Sanders. Like I said in like my first reaction video when we got the first overall pick, I thought my gut instinct was we should trade down, we should get as many picks as possible, we should do as much as we can. Chad Brinker having final roster say, that being such a key point that came out in all the press releases, all the info that came out today, screams to me that maybe there was already a miscommunication or a disagreement about what was going to happen that first overall draft pick. And I think Chad Brinker has say, we as Titans fans, if you've been around long enough, I was there when our general manager, Floyd Reese, wanted to draft Jake Cutler. Our head coach, Jeff Fisher, wanted to draft Matt Leinart. And our owner, the father of Amy Adams Strunk, Bud Adams, said, screw you both, we're drafting Vince Young. And maybe Chad Brinker is the person who's more willing to say, I have final roster control, but I'm going to do what Amy tells me to do. And I can definitely see Amy saying, we need franchise guy, marquee guy. I got this big new stadium I'm opening that Nashville's paying for. I need to put a banner on the side of it, and the banner on the side of it's not going to be Abdul Carter. It's got to be Shedeur Sanders. Well, like I said earlier, I showed you that tweet. I talked about that tweet. And it was positive and it was negative. Dion definitely had a reaction to this situation. He is following the Titans, and as he should be, because that's where, potentially his son could go. I would still trade down. I would still try to get more picks. I think we have too much, positions to fill to just like take a swing on quarterbacks. I'm not interested on, but for whatever reason, this whole situation makes me think Shedeur Sanders is the guy, unless Dion puts his foot down and pulls an Eli like he said he probably will. But I'm going to wrap it up here. I do have the 2023, I think, season ticket member gift that just came in recently. Delaney Walker bobblehead. I'm going to unbox this real quick, just show it off as we wrap up because, I've talked more than I've wanted to about the Titans in the last 48 hours. But here we go. Oh, this one's a little different. So here it is. Delaney. But it also includes, and I guess this is because Delaney, was a little bit like quarterbacks often, he would wear a hat on the sideline, so it came with a hat. The 2023 bobblehead unboxed in 2025. Maybe this is why Rand Carthon got fired. Maybe he was in charge of getting these bobbleheads out sooner and he failed to do so. Who knows? But there you go. There's that. I did have one more thing. There's one more tweet I wanted to reference to because I thought this was a good one to wrap kind of the summary up of stuff. Because like I said, if you've watched the videos recently this year, I've been trying to be more positive. I'm trying not to dwell on negatives, and this is a very, very negative situation. Just because it feels like chaotic, it feels like a bad move. Sam Phelan covers the Titans. Also was famously, like I think, the runner-up on the most recent season of Survivor. So he's pretty good at wheeling, dealing, being smart, knowing how to do things in that situation. He tweeted, I'm in the minority, but I like this for the Titans. Organization is actually more aligned now than you think. Clear power structure. Brinker will hire GM. Brinker hired Callahan. QB next. The same people calling for firings are now outraged because someone got fired. So essentially, his point is Brinker was always in charge. Carthon was a patsy, a kind of like, a whatever, you know, give him a shot, give him a chance. But it was always Brinker was clearly the guy. Brinker made the decision on Callahan. Brinker will make the decision on the new GM. Brinker will make the decision on whatever is going to happen with the quarterback and other major roster decisions. So, from that perspective, the franchise is aligned in the vision of Chad Brinker. So the question now becomes, it seems chaotic, it seems terrible, and I can completely understand that, completely get behind that. But if we're looking for silver linings, if we're looking for potential, I just knocked the lady's head off. Sorry. We're looking for potential positivity, potential hope. Chad Brinker has been given control. Chad Brinker has been given the vote of confidence. He's been dubbed the king in the South, AFC South. I don't know if that, whatever. If he's an idiot, it's all going to fall apart and things are going to suck and we're going to be, bad for a while. But, if he is a good, football mind, if he knows what he's doing, if he makes good decisions, could be back very quickly. Through all this chaos, through all this crap, through all this stuff that seems like it sucks, we do still have the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. We do still have a coach who, didn't have the best first year, but definitely I think is got potential, got hope, could grow into, being a good coach. It's not all doom and gloom. There is hope, but we've put all our ducks in the Chad Brinker basket. And I don't know I barely know who Chad Brinker is. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But, if we're looking for a silver lining, if we're looking for hope, it's that Chad Brinker is what Amy Adams Strunk thinks he is. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to post updates here on the channel as things develop, as things go along. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you have the bell turned on for notifications so you get alerted anytime there are updates of any kind. I really hope this is it for this week. I hope we don't have any more chaos, any more crazy things happen. I love jumping out here and talking live, but at the same time, it's seems like the only thing that could possibly make me have to do any more live streams this week would be bad negative news. So fingers crossed, we're all good for this week. We'll see. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your bagels.